Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. My name's Gavin. I'm glad that you're here. Looks like we've got a few people in here. So thank you, Cynthia, Lydia, Susan, Meg. Thanks for joining me from the very beginning. Looks like we've got 25 people or so watching right now, and I gotta say I'm feeling a little rusty. I moved everything up to the upstairs office out of the basement because we had some flooding down there, and I had to reset up everything. So not hopefully you guys can hear me okay, and yeah, and everything will go well today. So hey Molly, thanks for joining. So I am going to, hey Nancy, good to see you again. I'm going to let's just start by kind of remembering where we are, right? This is the case of Gabby Petito and who is the victim, and also there is Brian Laundrie, who is the perpetrator of the crime, that crime being murder. We learned a lot when we got this lawsuit from the Petitos, where they sued Christopher and Roberta Laundrie. We learned a few things, and I think I probably should start off by saying I I kind of thought that I was done with the Gabby Petito case for a while because I wanted enough time to pass that all of the federal documents would hit and there would be a whole bunch of stuff to go through. Plus, it was being covered by everybody, and I had gotten into a kind of go live anytime there was breaking news kind of mode. And my kind of deal is I really enjoy the deep dives a lot more than that, more than just kind of reacting. I'm not saying that that's not cool, that's not important, and I think other people do it really well. It's just kind of not my deal. So hey Pat, thanks for coming. And okay, the sound is good. Anyway, I was going to drop it for a while because it was being covered very well, and I saw when the lawsuit was filed, and I just kind of saw all the news channels and networks and stuff posting things about the lawsuit. But as I went back over the last few days, and saw that they were just reporting 1 and 2 minute things that the lawsuit had been filed, and they'd have a talking head on and talk for a few minutes about the about the lawsuit, and they really didn't get into it. I was surprised that there aren't other YouTubers that have really gotten into it. Maybe there are, I just haven't seen them yet. But anyway, I thought it was a good opportunity to go ahead and do it. So yeah, so let's see if there are any. Karen, hello from England. Karen, thanks for joining us all the way from across the pond. That reminds me, guys, before we get into this, I am actually going to be at CrimeCon UK in London, June 11th and 12th of this year. I'm going to be in Podcasters Row. And I'm actually really excited about it because I have never been to a crime con. I've never been to a true crime conference of any kind. And even though I'm a veteran of trade shows, I've never done a true crime trade show. So I'm going to have a booth there. Karen, if you want to come to CrimeCon and meet me there, that would be terrific. I actually have a discount code that you guys can use, but I don't have it quite yet, so I will post it to the community page on YouTube when I do have it. And let's see, we got Harlan. Hello from Sugar Grove, PA. Harlan, you are a neighbor of mine, must be, huh? So thank you for doing that. Okay. Enough of me just kind of blathering on and rambling. Let's go ahead and get into this. I want to start with the lawsuit, and then if you guys have questions along the way, I will read those. I will answer those the best that I can, and then afterwards, I would like very much to get into the autopsy report and the osteological report and everything that had to do with Brian Laundrie, because I don't think anybody has ever done that. Well, we've got two of you from South Africa. You guys are representing. Thanks for being here. James, good to see you, man. James is an old high school classmate of mine. We've known each other a long, long time. Good to see you. Okay, let's hop in. This is the complaint. It's actually a short complaint. It's only 6 pages. If you go over to my website, let me, and you're a patron of mine, you can go to the case page, click on Gabby Petito. She's up there at the top, and all of the documents regarding the lawsuit are there. If you're not a patron, you're not going to see this. You're going to see kind of a little square that says, sign up to be a patron. But this has everything that is filed so far. Okay. Now let's go ahead and get back over to the lawsuit real quick. See if I can do that on my end. Okay, there are a few things that I highlighted. The first part of it is simply a statement of, hey, it's proper for us to file this lawsuit, and this is why. The venue is correct, the damages exceed a certain amount, and the defendants reside there. Blah blah blah. It's just kind of boilerplate. Let me turn off my highlighter here. And then it gets into some details on page 2. Before that, it's just kind of standing and things like that. So, we know that Brian and Gabby got engaged on July 2nd. That was on our timeline. And then they left New York in a van owned by Gabby to travel the United States for several months. Okay, so we know all of this. Let's get to some of the things that I think are important here. And hello, everybody. Foz from the UK. Jean-Marie Richardson from Canada. Thank you. We've got, holy cow, we've got a lot of you. Austin, Texas. Pittsburgh. All right, we've got a lot of you. Thanks for coming. Okay. I highlighted a couple things that I think are important to me. Item number 12 here is that Joe Petito last communicated with Gabby on August 21st, 2021. And if we go over to the website again and go on to the timeline, that is about what we figured. Dad orders Domino's for Gabby in Salt Lake, right? She was staying in the Fairfield Inn and Suites there in Salt Lake City. Okay, and then the next thing we see is that Nicole Schmidt, the last communication she had was on August 27th, and it is believed that that is the day that Brian Laundrie murdered Gabby Petito. One of the things that we didn't know before, we knew that she had died by throttling, right? But we also learned in this lawsuit that there were blunt force injuries to her head. So that's pretty new. At least that's not anything that I had heard reported before. So that one was new to me. Couple other things, Brian Laundrie texted back and forth to Gabby's cell phone to try to hide the fact that she was dead. And then it is, we know about the August 27th text where it looks like Brian was impersonating Gabby and called Gabby's grandfather by his first name, which is Stan, which Gabby never did. So that was a tip-off that something was wrong. Okay, so number 18 is important to me. It says, it is believed and therefore averred that on or about August 28th, 2021, Brian Laundrie advised his parents, Christopher Laundrie and Roberta Laundrie, that he had murdered Gabrielle Petito. That is, apparently they alleged that they then spoke with Steve Bertolino, their attorney, and they sent him a retainer on September 2nd, 2021. Now, this is important to me because, well, mostly the camping trip, right? That is the thing that is just weird to me. That if they knew on about August 28th that Brian had killed Gabby, no matter how he justified it to him, he may have justified it by it was an accident or something like that. Obviously, we know that it wasn't, but he may have said something like that to them. If we go over to our timeline, which let me get us over there real quick. So we think on the 28th, according to the lawsuit, is when Gabby died. I thought it was, well, from the 27th to the 29th. They said on the 27th she was killed. On the 28th, he told his parents. Okay, so then when was it that they went camping? It was like, September 6th through the 8th. So if on September 6th through the 8th, now over a week after the what the lawsuit alleges is the date that they knew that Gabby was dead, then that seems strange to me. Like at the time I was given the laundries, if you guys go back and look at my stuff, a lot of you were angry at me. At the time I was given the laundries kind of the benefit of the doubt on that because I just didn't know. We could speculate all day long about what they did or did not know. But according to the lawsuit, they allege that they did know at that point, which I just think is really, really suspicious that they would go on a camping trip. They later say, let's see, so September 1, he returns in the van, and then one of the, yeah, so they bring it up here that the Laundrie family went on the vacation to Fort DeSoto, and then on September 10th, they blocked Nicole Schmidt on their cell phones and on Facebook. So if by September 10th they now are 10 or 11 or 12 days into knowing that Gabby is dead, they certainly are certainly acting suspicious, right? It's definitely a suspicious thing. All right. If we go through this whole thing, the lawyer issued a statement on September 14th. We've gone through that, and then we knew that there was that open letter. So they go over that. They asked them to please help them find Gabby, and they never did. They never responded. Now, what does 27 say? Despite the fact that Joseph Petito and Nicole Schmidt implored Christopher Laundrie and Roberta Laundrie to tell them if their daughter was alive, and if she was not, where her remains were located, Christopher and Roberta refused to respond to either Joseph or Nicole or law enforcement. And I actually have something to say about that. But this one, going back to the Fort DeSoto thing, this is the piece that I thought was pretty important. Now, they're just alleging this, right? While Joseph and Nicole were desperately searching for information concerning their daughter, Christopher and Roberta were keeping the whereabouts of Brian Laundrie secret, and it is believed they were making arrangements for him to leave the country. I think that's a pretty big allegation that they're saying that they believe that they were trying to get their son out of the country so that he could evade law enforcement. I don't know what proof they have on that. It's possible. I know that the Petitos and the Schmidts were in pretty frequent contact with the FBI and with investigators and law enforcement in Florida. So they may have some inside information. At this point, there are no exhibits. There's no discovery. There's no anything. This is just the complaint. Okay. But yeah, so let me go through some of the things that you guys are asking over here. I see a couple of questions. Let's see. Jenny Rose says, denying a person a respectful burial in good time is a law in the UK, whereby if you have knowledge of someone left, you could be prosecuted. This case is quite simply shocking. Is anyone losing love? Yeah. So that's a law in the UK that if you deny a person a respectful burial, I think probably the equivalent to that, there are federal and state laws in the United States that it would probably be like mishandling or desecration of a corpse, and that is used frequently if you're trying to hide a corpse. You put it in a garbage can or you put it in a shallow grave. You definitely can be prosecuted for that, though shockingly in most places that I'm aware of that is a misdemeanor still. It's not a felony. Let's see, Radagast 2013 says, I wonder if the feds gave us such a sparse final report in order to avoid prejudicing the case, which they probably had prior knowledge of. Yeah, could be, maybe. Kind of feel like, I kind of feel like, well, I better not say that out loud. I was going to say that I feel like to investigators, they're hammers and everything is a nail, but part of their job is preparing for prosecution. So, I mean, that's possible. To claim Gabby was definitely murdered on the 27th, surely they must have definitive evidence. I think in fairness there, Karen, I think they said they believed that Gabby was killed on the 27th. I think it is believed. So in fairness, they didn't make that definite declaration that she was killed on the 27th. And Brian Laundrie's autopsy report and all of the forensic report has something to say about that. If I remember correctly, I think we'll get into that. Thanks for that, Karen. And then let's see. Man, telling them killed in the let's see. Man, I love my kids, but you come telling me you killed someone, and I'm letting the authorities know. Yeah, I think most of us feel that way. That's for their own good. You'd feel that way, right? Let's see. Lydia says the weekend before was book first. They changed the camping trip to the 7th and 8th. Oh, that's right. That's right, Lydia. They had booked it for a week earlier. And then they did it later. So it's possible that, yeah, I see what you're saying there. It's possible that they were trying to plan this ahead of time. Yeah. Let's see. Hi from PEI Canada. Wow, I'm embarrassed about, I'm not sure where that is. Anyway, I know where Canada is. I'm wondering where PEI is. I'm not sure what that is, but let me know. I believe they would need to have some proof before bringing up this lawsuit. Okay, so that is a very good point. Here is the thing. In the United States, and many of us, maybe even watching this right now, have had this experience. I have had this experience. In the United States, in order to bring a civil lawsuit, you need absolutely no proof. Anybody can file a lawsuit against anybody else at any given time in the United States. Not quite sure how I feel about that. I mean, I feel like in the past I was the victim of somebody who made spurious allegations against me. I didn't like it then, but at the same time, I know of other cases where I'm really glad that that is the case, because otherwise they would have no recourse. Karen says there's probably digital evidence that they were planning to help him escape abroad. There might be. I'm just wondering how the Petito and Schmitz would have that. I'm not sure. Let's see. In Florida, you can always amend a civil filing after you have depositions and discovery. Yes, Nancy, that is absolutely true. You can. Now, I'm going to get to why I don't think that's going to happen, Nancy. So help me remember that. I don't think that's going to happen in this case, but you're absolutely right. Okay, Meg says, I think the parents knew Brian was going to take his own life and knew exactly where. When they picked up the car, I knew it. Oh, if that is the case, that saddens me a lot. but it's possible. Okay, so Cynthia says the bottom line is Brian killed Gabby, not the parents, and the parents are not legally required to tell law enforcement what their son told them. Ethically, their behavior sucked. Legally, it is not. Cynthia, I think you were correct there, and I think well, I'll talk about. Let's go ahead and get back over into the actual lawsuit. Let's go back to kind of where we were. Blocked on Facebook, the letter, all that stuff. Okay. Making arrangements for him to leave the country. Okay. So the next couple of paragraphs talk about how there was mental suffering, there was anguish that could have been alleviated if the Laundries had just worked with them. And then it says, they exhibited outrageous conduct, which constitutes behavior under the circumstances, which goes beyond all possible bounds of decency and is regarded as shocking. So that comes back again to what you just said, Cynthia, right? It's like, yeah, it's ethically bad. It's morally bad. It goes past the bounds of decency, but is it illegal? All right, so the last paragraph before they make their request says, as a direct and proximate result of the willfulness and maliciousness of Christopher and Roberta Laundrie, Joseph Petita and Nicole Schmidt have been caused to suffer pain and suffering, mental anguish, inconvenience, loss of capacity for enjoyment of life experienced in the past and to be experienced in the future. Wherefore, plaintiffs, Joseph and Nicole, respectfully request this honorable court enter judgment in their favor and against the defendants, Christopher and Roberta Laundrie, and award to them just compensation for the damages they have suffered, together with costs and such other relief as this honorable court deems just and appropriate. Okay, so this is the point that I want to make, and I kind of chuckled there. It's not funny, and it's not amusing. I guess it just makes me uncomfortable, which is why I chuckle. This is the first civil lawsuit I have ever read that does not actually state a claim. There is no claim stated at all. Now, if you guys can just bear with me for a second, let me give you an example of how this is supposed to work. I'll open it up here. If you guys, did you see the video I did pretty recently on the death of Carrie Moynihan? Let me go to that complaint here real quick. Get it on for you here. Okay, so this is the complaint that Carrie Moynihan's parents made. It's a 50-page complaint. If we go all the way to the end, where are we? Then it will list a cause of action. So this is what I'm saying. When I say there's no claim, there's no cause, right? And like in this case, there are 3 causes of action, and in the Petito Schmidt v. Laundrie lawsuit, there is no cause of action that they even list. So my personal belief is that this will never get to deposition. I don't think that it will ever get to discovery. I think that the Laundrie's lawyers will make a motion for dismissal, and I think it'll be granted because they have not made a claim. They haven't listed a cause. Okay, so now that I've said that, let's see what you guys say here. Let's see. It's possible that the firearm was given to Brian by his father along with food. I'm convinced it's possible that the father knew he was going to commit suicide. I'm going to get into the document on the forensics document, but the forensic document actually describes the gun that was used. It was an EEA 38 Special /357. Now, basically what that means is it can fire both 357 Magnum rounds and 38 Special rounds. They're both the same diameter, and if you have a long enough, cylinder for 357, then the same gun can fire the same bullets. A 38 is kind of a smaller round. 357 is a big round. So it was described as a short-barreled EEA 38 Special. They didn't tell me exactly what the barrel length was. This one is what we usually call a snub nose. This one is a 4-inch barrel. I think it's more likely that this is the gun that he shot himself with, and we'll get into that. Golden Spudlet said, didn't they have a gun on their road trip though? Was it that gun? So that gun, and I don't have a picture prepared, but for the broadcast, but Gabby Petito had photos of that gun, and that one was a semi-automatic. So it wasn't the same gun, to my eye anyway. Yeah. Let's see what Radagast says. So we're not talking criminal law. By stonewalling, the Laundries broke no criminal laws. What Gabby's parents are alleging is negligence, and that negligence caused psychological trauma. Okay, so I agree with your rhetorical goal in this sentence, right? But I have to nitpick a little bit here because they are not alleging negligence. Otherwise, they would have claimed that. They would have listed that as a cause. And there's just a major problem with that. Lifelong Learner says the pain and suffering is always the major part of being damaged. Yeah, and sometimes there are punitive damages. I noticed that they didn't, at least that I recall, they just asked for just compensation for damage together with costs and other such relief as the court deems just and appropriate, which that's an interesting way to write that. So I guess they're asking for other relief, which could be punitive. So that's good. Kim says, do you think the court will even hear the case? Seems to be missing the meat. I agree with you. I think that, yes, I mean, the court will hear the case, but we'll read the case. I don't know that it'll ever get to oral arguments. I think that the Laundrie's lawyer will make a motion for dismissal and he'll get it. Aiding and abetting, they knew about a murder and didn't report it. They knew where Brian was. So this is a question that I think we have to have a lawyer really to answer that. But I think that the definition of aiding and abetting, I don't. I wish I knew the textbook definition. Fortunately, though, we have Google. Let's take a look and see what Google says. Let me bring you over to that screen. Okay, aiding and abetting definition. Let's see. So there are different degrees of aiding and abetting. Okay, so the prosecution has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that a crime was committed. The accused intentionally aided, counseled, commanded, induced, or procured the person committing the crime. The accused acted with the intent to facilitate the crime, and the accused acted before the crime was completed. Let's see, after the fact, you'd have to say the accused knew that the person committed the crime, and the accused assisted that person with a specific purpose or design to hinder or prevent that person's apprehension, trial, or punishment. So, I mean, yeah, I guess under that, Don, maybe it is aiding and abetting. There haven't been any criminal charges brought yet, but yeah, it could be possible. Let's see. Starriers says, I think the Petitos filed this lawsuit in hopes of more information coming out through the Laundries having to go to court or at least file a reply. So if I am correct, and I'm not a lawyer, but if I am correct, they won't have to file a reply. They will just file a a motion to dismiss, and they will list the reasons for that motion for dismissal. I'll tell you what I think. I personally think, and before I say this out loud, I think that this is brilliant. I think it's a good thing, even though it's about to sound negative. Okay. I think that the laundries are doing this because they think that by getting publicity, they might be able to do more to help other people who are in similar situations. I don't want to call it a publicity stunt, but there's just no meat on these bones. So I kind of feel like that might be at least one of their incentives is, let's keep Gabby Petito inside the public zeitgeist so that we can continue to help other people. That's it's a theory. I'm not saying that is exactly the case, but it's a theory. Let's see. Karen says, it bugs me so much that Brian was right-handed and he allegedly used his left hand to unalive himself. Doesn't ring true to me. Okay, let's use Karen's comment to kind of move over to the other document. This is a 47-page forensic report and includes the investigator's case summary, the report from the medical examiners, scene investigators, the medical examiner's autopsy report, an osteological examination, so that's a bone examination, DNA analysis, and odontologic forensic identification report. So he was initially, I need to remove that from there. Get that. He was initially identified through his teeth. So, so obviously, if we went through all 47 pages, this would be a very long video indeed. But there are a couple things that I pulled out that are at least interesting to me. Okay, first there were I think they say that there were three areas where they found Brian Laundrie's remains. The main scene contained human remains that included a right and left scapula, a right humerus, a left and right femur, 2 tibias, 2 fibulas, 2 clavicles, 2 pelvis, 1 right ulna, 1 right radius, a sacrum, multiple ribs, multiple skull fragments, along with the maxilla and mandible. So the maxilla is this bone structure kind of in our upper jaw. It kind of goes behind the nose. And then the mandible, of course, is the lower jaw. 25 vertebrae. And then it also contained a pair of green shorts with a green belt, 2 slip-on shoes, a backpack with unknown contents, a white metal ring, and an unknown type of handgun, snub-nosed revolver. So the snub-nose, it's definitely this kind of gun. I had forgotten that it said snub-nosed. Okay. Secondary scene contains skeletal animal remains, a handwritten half note, and a hat with the logo Moab Coffee Roasters. Now, I couldn't find the contents of the note in any of these pages in this report, but they cataloged that it was there. Okay, so continuing on, they had found the decedent's left arm bones, the main scene. Okay, so they talked about 3 zones. Zone 1 contained remains of the upper torso, upper extremities, and head. Zone 2 contained remains of the lower vertebra and sacrum. And Zone 3 contained remains of the left arm bones. That's kind of how that scene was split up. And I guess if you guys remember, let me kind of show you the overhead. Why isn't that doing that? Let me see. Acrobat. There we go. So you remember that they had tents and crime scene tape all over the place. So they had 3 different zones that they were looking at. Okay. Scroll down a little bit more, and again, this document is on the website for my Patreon supporters. You guys can download it there. It's also available if you Google it, you'll find it. But so Okay, at 13:26 hours, I was contacted by a detective, blah, blah, blah. Firearm collected at the scene was evaluated. The firearm was a European American, they mean armory. 38 special on barrel, 357 Magnum on the other side of the barrel. So it is this gun, or something similar to it. On the other side of the barrel, it would say 357 Magnum. And if you look at that handgun, the cylinder is long enough for 357. So that's what it was. It had 2 live rounds and 1 spent round of ammunition in the cylinder, and I found that extremely fascinating that it wasn't fully loaded. Right? I think that cylinder. I think that one has a 5-round capacity, if I remember. I looked it up, but it might be 6 rounds. I think it's a 5-round capacity, and he didn't fully load it. To me, that talks to his intentions, right? Or speaks to his intentions. All right. All right. Now we're gonna go ahead and get into. Yeah, that's where it said the short barrel revolver. I want to go down to the autopsy report. Okay, so now we're in the autopsy report, and they go to great lengths to catalog all of the different everything that they had, that they found. It's a long list, as you can see, and then so I kind of skipped it, but the evidence of injury is that there was a perforating gunshot wound to the head. Right, that means that perforating means that it went in, right, right, and okay, so I want to read the details of this since you brought up the left hand, Karen. So the gunshot wound enters the left side of the head, causing an area of extensive fracturing where the majority of the left temporal bone. The left temporal bone is not here, guys. The left temporal bone kind of goes up and around over your ear. So the temporal bone is right here. Not so when you think about where he shot, it wouldn't have been here. It would have been back here. Okay. All right. Temporal bone is absent. So the majority of the left temporal bone is absent along with extreme inferior aspects of the left parietal bone and portions of the posterior left sphenoid wing. The sphenoid bone is that part that we call our temple. So it like blew out. The entrance wound blew out most of that side of his head. So it's 5.5 by 5 centimeter area of bone defect, which means absence is noted without definitive circular or semicircular defect and or beveling due to bone absence. So the impact was big. So if you guys remember, I have a case that I'm looking at, which is the case of Father Joseph Marino. Father Joe was killed with a .38 caliber. That bullet entered in such a way that you almost couldn't see the entrance wound, and then it did not exit. A .38 caliber bullet is actually, I mean, it's a high power bullet, but amongst the high power bullets, it's pretty low power, right? But because this gun could shoot 357s, and 357s are extremely powerful, I would imagine that he put 357 Magnum bullets in the cylinder. That's just me speculating, but I feel pretty confident in what I'm saying there. Okay, so the presumed exact entrance point is centered in this defect, or the missing portion of the bone, and is estimated at approximately 5.8 centimeters below the top of the cranium. So starting at the top of the cranium, coming down about 5.5 centimeters, so we're kind of right in the middle there, and 5.5 centimeters above the external auditory canal, and then 6 centimeters from the midline. So it's about right in the side of the head. Okay. The exit wound is located on the right middle inferior parietal bone. Guys, the parietal bone is kind of up on top of our temporal bones. They're kind of up here. So it entered on the lower part of the head and came out a little bit higher. Okay. Just above the apex of the temporal bones. It's right at the bottom of the parietal and right at the top of the temporal, and is measured 4.5 centimeters below the top of the cranium, 5.5 centimeters above the right auditorial canal, and 6 centimeters from midline. So if I were, okay, so on the right side, we're 4.5 centimeters down from the top of the cranium, 5.5 up from the auditorial canal, and 6 from the midline. It went almost straight on a slightly upward trajectory. Just ever so slightly, 1 centimeter over the width of his skull. Let's see. The exit perforation is near circumferential, measures 11 to 12 millimeters in diameter, which is big, guys. 10 centimeters, about like that. Let's see. No gunfire associated bone discoloration, soot, or lead wipe are noted. On the superior aspect of the exit wound is a 1 by 0.7 centimeter missing fragment of the parietal bone. Therefore, the overall pathway or trajectory of the gunshot wound is left to right, very slightly upward, having little to no significant front to back deviation. I think that is a spot where I can check in with your comments to see what you guys think here. Let's see. Dads. Let's see. Whispers Hope says, I'm of the opinion Chris helped Brian and then helped end his life. How could he have known exactly where to find the remains? Man, that's a dark thought, Whispers Hope. She did mention that there isn't any like soot or lead wipe on the bones, which might mean that the gun was a little farther away, but also all of the soft tissue was gone, and all of the and it had been underwater for a while. So I personally am of the opinion that it was right against his head. Whether or not his dad helped end his life, ooh, I don't know, man. That seems a lot to ask of a dad. Let's see. Yeah, okay, getting back to Karen's, your comment that it's bothered you that it went left to right. I have also found what Cynthia has found, that people use their non-dominant hand to commit suicide by gunfire all the time. That does happen a lot. Now, where it gets dodgy is when that is one part of a pattern, or one part of a whole bunch of weirdnesses, right? Oddities. So, like in the case of Father Joe Marino, he used his non-dominant hand, which in and of itself, that's okay. But his non-dominant hand had been stabbed, it had been attacked, so he didn't have the ability to pull a trigger with that hand. So those two things together definitely are sketchy. But I agree with what Cynthia is saying there, that a lot of people who commit suicide by gunfire do so with their non-dominant hand. Mrs. Kelly asks, how can they rule it a suicide with those questions about the offhand and one bullet? I don't understand how they know for certain they don't write. Okay, well, that's a really good question, Mrs. Kelly. And I'm going to harken back to a conversation that I had with Dr. Kenneth Clark, who is my friend Kenny, who is a forensic pathologist, medical examiner. So in an autopsy, typically the autopsy itself will be mostly recorded, observed scientific fact until you get to the opinion. The opinion takes most of the opinion is written based on the investigative side of the crime scene, mostly. So, unless there's other evidence that shows somebody was there, it is it's understandable and reasonable to expect that the medical examiner would rule it a suicide. One, it looks like a suicide, but then when they look at the crime scene itself, they take that into consideration, and their opinion is mostly based on all of that. That's according to Kenny. It's also according to a deposition that I read in the case of Ellen Greenberg, where Dr. Marlon Osborne said the exact same thing, which is the reason that I asked Kenny the question in the first place. Hey, Judy, thanks for coming. Glad you're here. Let's see. Susan says the Laundries didn't disclose the location of his body until they knew it was totally decomposed. That way no one could prove anything but Ed from gunshot to the head. But so I guess the argument there is, Susan, if I'm reading this correctly, is that your argument is that somebody else killed Brian. Christopher is your suspect, but they waited until he was decomposed before they told anybody so that that evidence would be covered up. I don't know. For me, that's a stretch. Sometimes in troubleshooting, I'm a software developer. That's what I've done for a living for a long, long time. It's what I went to school for. So I look at cases like these the same way I look at troubleshooting software. If there's a bug or a problem, something isn't working, I look at all of the possible scenarios, which I think is one of the things that you're saying is a possibility. But I then sort that list of possibilities by what is most probable down to what is least probable. To me, I don't feel that it's probable. And I say that respectfully. If that's the way you feel, that's the way you feel. I just don't think so yet. Whispers Hope asked, was any info released about their telephone records? I have not seen those records at all yet. If they're part of the federal investigation, we're probably 9 or 10 months out before we'll be able to get those records, but I'll keep my eye on them. Meg has to run. Thanks for coming, Meg. Not Farrah Fawcett. Any information about who the gun is registered to, there's always a serial number. So not Farrah Fawcett, that is not in this document that I read, but I would imagine that is part of the investigative files that will eventually become public. Karen says, I think Brian was murdered and not by any of his family, just a suspicion. So you're kind of doing what Susan was doing there, but not pinning it on Chris. And again, it's a possibility. It's something to suspect. But if I were an investigator and I'm looking at all those possibilities, I think that I would start ruling out others before I got down there. That's just my opinion. Let's see. I think they knew exactly where he was when they were helping him get ready to flee the country. Let's see. Went there to hide from media attention. They gave Head Start and gave wrong dates to confuse law enforcement. But didn't they say from the beginning that he had gone to that place? Why am I blanking on the nature preserve? Didn't they say that from the beginning that that's where he was? Not Farrah Fawcett asks if the parents have any military background. That's unknown to me. That's a good question, though. Yeah, Linda, I think this is valid. To me, it makes zero sense that the Laundries were first trying to help their son escape and then turn around and help him remove himself from the planet. That's a good point. Let's see. Let's go down. I'm gonna skip. Radagast, I once witnessed a self-termination. Wow, that's tough. In the absence of a note, the coroner has to have overwhelming evidence to rule it. In my case, there was CCTV and witnesses. Okay, Kinda. So when we talk in absolutes like that, we open ourselves to a lot of, I guess, what is the word that I'm looking for there? When you talk in absolutes like that, then you have to be absolutely correct. And I don't think that's the case. For example, in Ellen Greenberg, they ruled her death a suicide because Dr. Osborne was convinced by the police that she was the only one in the room. There was no CCTV, nothing. But to your point, he did think that there was a witness. So yeah. So he might be right. Let's see. Did Brian's parents get insurance policy on Brian or Gabby? It's suspicious the parents got a brand new pickup and camper around the time Gabby was reported missing. The Laundries, from what I can tell, have various investments, including real estate. I think they probably, well, first of all, they wouldn't have been able to get insurance money from Gabby if nobody knew that she was dead, right? So I don't think that was a thing. I think they probably just bought that because they bought it. In Florida, it's not required to register a gun. Actually, guys, just so you know, in a lot of different places, this is the case. When you buy a gun, you do a federal background check and all that stuff. They know who purchased the gun. But in many states, including two in which I have actually lived, I could gift a gun to my brother, to my cousin, to my friend, or whatever, and now that is their gun, and they don't have to register at all unless there's an exemption on that one. So, yeah, what I do think about the gun is that it's not the gun that they had with them on the trip. And if I were to go to Speculationville on that one, I'd probably say that. I was gonna say that maybe Brian Laundrie would have hid that or tossed it or something like that, but it wasn't used in the commission of Gabby's death. So I don't know. Pamela is here. Hey everyone. Hey Gavin, you're late. Well, but we're glad you made it. Thanks for coming, Pamela. Let's see. Cynthia says they told their attorney that Brian went to the park that day. He went there, then told him he didn't come back that night. Bertolino told the FBI this that night. I think that is the case. Yeah. When someone's murdered, they don't get the life insurance. I should ask my wife on this one. She's an insurance agent. I'm not sure what the underwriting laws are and all that, but I think if somebody's murdered, then yeah, the beneficiaries do get the life insurance. It's more of a suicide thing that they hold it back on. Let's see. Yeah, no requirements to register in Nevada. Yeah, I lived in Reno. My family lived in Reno. In fact, that's most of the guns that I own were acquired in Reno. Let's see. Gavin, do you think $20,000 in Brian's account was money his parents put in his bank to help him escape, and that's maybe why they were desperately trying to get the money back? I mean, if, as the Petitos and Schmitz allege, that they were trying to help him leave the country, then it makes sense that $20,000 was in there to help him go on the lam. I feel like that the Laundries were kind of pinned down in that time frame where Gabby was missing and then Brian was missing. Brian had left, right? I think they were kind of pinned down. I don't know that they were too terribly worried about 20 grand. To a person like me and you, that's probably a lot of money, but I think, and it's probably a lot of money to them too, but not for the purpose of getting their son out of the country. It doesn't seem like that would be their main concern. That's just my thought. Okay, so, all right, let me head on back over to this document. I think there are a couple other things that I highlighted that are important to me anyway. Let me see if I can find those. Oh, yeah. The toxicology report, what they did is a comprehensive drug screen. Now, this toxicology report doesn't identify exactly what that tox screen is. That usually is listed on the final page of the toxicology report, so I feel like they probably just released this first page. But it does say they did a drug screen from cartilage and from bone, and there were no drugs in his body. I thought that was interesting. Sometimes people will, if they're planning on removing themselves from life, they will kind of take the edge off. And alcohol at that point probably wouldn't have been possible to find that. Okay, let's go. There's another one. Okay. So, it was the 21st of October that that the medical examiner's office went to the scene, and then this is important because they did a whole estimation of the postmortem interval. The postmortem interval is defined as the time frame between the time somebody died and the time that they were examined. That's all that means. So this examiner believes that the postmortem interval was 47.4 days to 672.4 days, which sounds kind of funny, kind of ridiculous, because we know he wasn't gone for 2 years. But scientifically speaking, that's what their analysis tells them, is that he was missing or he was dead somewhere between 47 days, 672 days, or approximately a month and a half to nearly 2 years. Now, remind me, guys, when did Brian Laundrie go missing? Right? Was that the 17th of September, something like that? It was September, let's just say, and then he was found on October 21st. So this to me is important because I think that tells us that he went out into the woods and he offed himself that day. That's what I think. I think that he planned to go out in the woods for that purpose, or out into the nature reserve for that purpose, and I think he did it right then. And that's why I highlighted that one. I don't think that there's anything else on this document that I wanted to go over. They redacted a whole bunch of stuff. There's a whole bunch of forensic charts and things like that. But that's really what I wanted to go over on that. And to me that was interesting. That that was his purpose for going out there, and I'm pretty sure that was it. So, are there any other questions before I kind of wrap this up, or any comments you guys want to go over? Let's see. Pamela says, I heard the 20,000 was from an inheritance from his grandmother. I don't remember hearing about that. Mrs. Kelly says that the 20,000 was revealed in the notebook. Don't understand why. I hope sometime we're going to find out what that is. Kim says, if that 20,000 was in the bank before the parents could have put it in there, why wasn't Brian and Gabby using that money? That's why I think the parents put it in after the fact. Well, do we know what money that they were using as they were on their trip, right? Were they trying to, or had they saved? I don't know what they were doing as far as what they were doing for money to finance the trip. It may have been that $20,000. I do not know. Let's see. Whispers Hope says, nothing's been said about forensics done in Gabby's van. Was it ever looked into? Okay, so I requested the search warrant affidavit on that one because there were 3 search warrants initially, 2 of which were on the van, and that one was sealed at that time. Now, it might be unsealed at this point. I think, though, I'm going to wait until about a year has passed and then see what stuff I can get once the case is closed. Let's see. What else? Pamela says, everyone like and subscribe. It's free. Help get the video out that we enjoy Gavin's channel content. Thank you, Pamela. Yeah, if you like this kind of stuff, and I'm starting to do less of these live streams on this stuff, but I will definitely do them when I'm able to dive into documents. If you like this stuff, you think I've earned it, I would really appreciate a like and a subscribe. Also, guys, and you won't hear this from many other YouTubers, but if you don't like it, feel free to go ahead and thumbs down it. I don't mind, because it tells me what kind of stuff you like, and you won't be bothered to buy my channel if you dislike enough of my stuff, which I think is good for you too. So, okay, there are a couple things to be clear. Radagast says, to be clear, I was called as a witness by the coroner. The S word isn't ruled without definitive evidence because of religious, legal, etc. ramifications, e.g. insurance, misadventure is the alternative ruling. Yeah, okay. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. Check you out with the documents, Cam. Yeah, I like documents. I'm all about documents. If they had all that money, why would he have to use her cards to be able to get back to Florida? Now that is good reasoning. That's good logicking. That's not even a word, but yeah, that's a good point. Because what the charges were for while he was missing. Yeah, I mean that they tracked him by his use of that debit card. Let's see. He used her debit card. Was it to make it look like she was alive, or because he didn't have access to his own money? Also a good question. Good job. Do you think that Brian Laundrie was involved in Kylan and her wife's death? Okay. I have not done much on publicly on the case. Kylan, and why am I having a senior moment on this? Let me go into cases here. Kylan and Crystal Turner, right? So Kylan and Crystal. But I have looked into it quite a lot. I do not think the Brian Laundrie had any involvement in their deaths. I don't think the Brian Laundrie is like a serial killer. He's not a what we would classically maybe understand as a murderer. I think, and this is just my opinion, I think that they had been fighting. Things had been getting tense. He had been mentally and emotionally abusive toward her. Things started to get physical, and I think he lost his temper. Now, that is definitely murder. That makes him a murderer, right? But when it comes to Kylan and Crystal, that there would have to be something that suggests to me that he was a serial killer. That like he snapped and he's like, okay, so I've killed Gabby. Now I need to go out and look for others to kill. Or yeah, to me that leap is a little too far. That's just me. Let's see. Not Fair Fawcett says, thank you. I like watching your shows. Very interesting. You're welcome. Thanks for stopping by. Let's see. In the Petito Schmidt Australia 60 Minutes interview, Gabby's mother stated they both were using their own money. Okay, they both saved up. Thanks for that, Linda. Aaron says likes the live streams. Well, then I will do more of them. Thank you both for saying that. Do you know where Gabby's van is? As far as I understand it, that is still in the possession of the police. But I mean, full transparency, I haven't been looking. So Mrs. Kelly says FBI has the van. Judy says go to gavinfish.com to join Gavin's Patreon, purchase Gavin's merch. Guys, Judy, thank you for saying that. Judy always has my back, always is looking for me to be able to do well on YouTube. Guys, it is my dream to do this full time. I am so far away from that dream. I can't even describe it. I'm probably many years away from it. But I want to do that, and in order to do it, I do need to figure out how to make it financially. And if you like this kind of content, one of the ways that you can help me financially is through Patreon or by buying my merch. And I have to say, CrimeCon here in the UK that I'm going to is actually pretty expensive for me to go, even though I was invited, and they're giving me a booth to exhibit, a table to exhibit. Traveling there and staying in the hotel and all that stuff is quite expensive. So if you would like to support me to go to CrimeCon UK, that is one way that you can do that. You can become a patron, or you can buy merch, or you can just watch my videos. You can go through my library videos. That definitely helps too. So thanks for that plug, Judy. I really appreciate that. Let's see if how long do they keep evidence? So it depends on the nature of the evidence. Sometimes evidence is kept in perpetuity, even after the case is closed, prosecuted, appealed, and won. They keep it in perpetuity. I think a van, unless there's more evidentiary value to the van, they probably will release it at some time. Kim says, I wish I could give one more like. Love this. You're factual and don't speculate or make up stuff. Let's see. Kim, thank you. Again, I agree with your rhetorical goals there, but I do speculate from time to time. I'm not above that, but I do try to stick to the facts as much as I can. A couple other things before I kind of wrap it up. Petra says, thanks from South Africa. Thank you for representing your country well. We've had a few of you today. Thanks for being here. Let's see. While searching for Gabby, they discovered 9 killings in parks on Brian's tail, and all unsolved still. I mean, and that is a good reason why somebody would come to the conclusion that Brian Laundrie was on a killing spree. I just the nature of how he did it. And I guess I have to make an assumption that it was the first time he did it, I guess, right? That's the major assumption there. But I just don't feel like he's a serial. I feel like serials are smarter, and I also feel like they don't give up their own lives so easily. You know what I mean? Like I mean, I'm sure there are thousands of serial killers that we don't know their identities of, right? I'm sure they're out there, but of the ones that we do know, I can't even think of one. Certainly I can't think of very many who, after killing would take his own life. So yeah, that's just me. Moab has said they ruled out Brian in Kylan and Crystal's case. Yeah. Judy, thanks for the plug. All right. Mrs. Kelly says, last I knew they had it, but I'm not positive right now. I think you're talking about the van. Gavin, we love your channel. My daughter's in college taking forensics and biochemistry science. They all follow you. That's awesome. Thank you very much. All right, guys. Thanks for joining me today. We've been at it a little over an hour, and a lot of you have joined me today. I really appreciate it. Again, if you feel like supporting me financially, please head over to Patreon or to my website. If you want access to a lot of the documents that I kind of put behind that Patreon paywall, and I do that because there are costs involved in getting a lot of documents, and Patreon, my supporters help me get those. But yeah, please head over there. I only have one level. It's $3 a month, and it goes a long way. So thank you very much. Thank you all for joining. Moderators, Judy, thank you very much for coming in and moderating. Thank you for all of your comments. My next video that's coming out is on Monday, and I'll give you just kind of a sneak peek on this, guys. This is a case where we've got a real life like gangster, like a Tony Soprano kind of character, who his ex-wife was killed in a very violent and very telling manner. So That video will be coming out on Monday at about 2 o'clock Eastern here in the US. And I hope you like it. I am in contact with that family the same way I am with Shelby Thornburg's family, Father Joe's family, Amanda's family, Ellen's family. I'm working with them and gathering as much evidence as I possibly can. And this first video is an introduction to the case and everything that we know about it. So on Monday, look for that. And with that, guys, I shall bid you adieu, and I hope to see you next time. Take care. Thanks for stopping by. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you liked what you saw, please subscribe to my channel. And if you have any comments or questions, please leave them below.